Ethan Cole stepped off the transport shuttle and onto the gleaming metal platform of the neutral arena station. The air was filled with a strange mix of scents and sounds from hundreds of species gathered to observe combat matches. Humans were a small minority here, and most of the aliens barely paid attention to them. Ethan kept his eyes calm and focused, moving slowly among the crowd without drawing unnecessary attention. He was not here to fight, not yet, but he had been assigned as an observer to ensure humans were represented respectfully. Still, the looks he received from the aliens made it clear that respect was something he would have to earn. Lyra Voss, tall and lithe alien warrior with shimmering purple skin, noticed him immediately. She had been watching the humans for years, in similar arenas, and she found them predictable. They were slow, weak, and relied too much on gadgets and tools. Seeing Ethan, a single human, walking confidently among a group of stronger aliens, made her arch an eyebrow. "Why is he here?" she muttered to herself. "Surely he cannot be a fighter. He is just a human." Ethan felt her eyes on him, but did not react. He had learned long ago that arrogance and anger were the tools of those who underestimated others. Instead, he quietly observed the alien crowd, taking in their forms, their postures, and the way they communicated. Every gesture, every twitch of muscle was meaningful. For humans, this was new territory. He knew that even a small misstep could become a point of ridicule. Or worse, a challenge. The arena itself was massive, filled with platforms of different shapes and sizes. With a translucent barrier separating observers from the combat floor, it was neutral ground, created to test skill rather than strength alone. Fighters were expected to follow strict rules that limited technology. Weapons were standardized, armor was minimal, and brute force was not the sole way to win. Ethan understood that, in this environment, careful observation was just as valuable as combat ability. Nearby, a group of human delegates whispered among themselves. "He'll be eaten alive if he steps onto the floor," said one, concern clear in her voice. Ethan did not answer, only smiled faintly. Humans often doubted themselves too quickly, underestimating what they could do when they relied on discipline and wit. He had seen too many people surrender before even trying, and he would not make that mistake. The aliens, on the other hand, were full of confident chatter. They mocked the humans openly, making subtle gestures that suggested inferiority. "Look at him," one said in a hushed but audible tone to a companion. "He is not even armed properly. He will trip over his own feet before the fight starts." Lyra heard this and allowed a small dismissive laugh to escape. She had been correct for years. Humans were weak. That knowledge had kept her confident, unchallenged, but she also had a sense of pride, a need to show that her people were superior. Ethan's quiet presence irritated her more than she wanted to admit. The first demonstration began on the main arena floor, and the crowd's attention shifted. Aliens with multiple limbs moved with elegance and speed, performing drills that humans could barely follow with the eyes. Ethan watched, analyzing their movements, noting patterns in timing and stance. He knew that preparation was as important as reaction. If a duel ever came to him, he would need to anticipate, adapt, and survive longer than anyone expected. While observing, Ethan noticed something else. Not all aliens were arrogant. A few older warriors, veterans of countless duels, studied him curiously. They saw the quiet human and wondered if there was more than met the eye. Ethan caught their gaze briefly and nodded politely. These small connections mattered. Even in a crowd that doubted him, finding one ally, one neutral observer, could shift perception slightly. The arena announcer. A robotic voice amplified across the station, called out the next match. A human delegate had been goaded into a fight, a simple test match meant to amuse the crowd. The aliens laughed openly, expecting an easy victory. Ethan watched as the humans struggled with the aliens' superior speed and strength. The crowd cheered and jeered simultaneously. It was the kind of event that reinforced stereotypes: humans weak, aliens strong, tradition proven correct. Ethan felt a growing discomfort as he watched. The human delegates' pride and composure were breaking under pressure. Yet he noticed moments of clever strategy that even the aliens did not anticipate. He realized that intelligence and calm could make a difference. Strength alone did not guarantee victory. This small realization, though simple, made him more determined. He began to plan quietly in his mind, imagining how he would handle a similar situation if ever challenged directly. Then came the moment that shifted the atmosphere. One of the aliens, a larger, more imposing species, openly mocked the human delegation, throwing insults that echoed across the arena. The delegates recoiled, unsure how to respond. Lyravos's gaze sharpened. She had not expected a human to react, but she noticed Ethan step forward slightly. His posture calm but deliberate. He did not speak at first, only stood, observing, letting the tension build. The alien crowd assumed he was just moving closer to see better, but those who watched carefully saw a spark of resolve in his eyes. Ethan was not going to stand aside and let humiliation continue unchecked. The silence that followed was unusual. It was the kind of quiet that precedes action, a pause that made even the confident aliens uneasy. Some human delegates whispered warnings. "Don't do it. He'll get hurt." Ethan ignored them. He had made a personal choice. Observation had given him insight, but it also revealed injustice. He was a human, yes, but he would not let arrogance and false assumptions dominate without resistance. If a challenge arose, he would meet it head-on, not with brashness, but with careful, deliberate skill. The crowd began to notice, sensing a change in energy. Lyravos stiffened slightly, her instincts as a warrior alerting her to the unusual presence of calm determination. She had expected humans to flee, to bow, or at least to remain insignificant. Yet here was a human who did not move away, who did not shrink, who seemed entirely unconcerned with her scrutiny. It was unusual, and it made her curious. Curiosity in a warrior often led to respect or challenge. As the match ended on the arena floor, the announcer called for a break. Observers and participants alike moved around, talking excitedly. Ethan stayed where he was, taking mental notes about each participant's abilities, weaknesses, and patterns. Even a casual observer could learn a lot if they watched closely. He made mental sketches of Lyra's movements, imagining how she might react in a duel. He was not planning aggression. He was planning understanding. Lyra, meanwhile, found herself glancing at him repeatedly. There was something unusual about this human, something that defied expectation. Her assumptions about humans being weak and dependent were challenged not by brute strength, but by composure, observation, and quiet confidence. It annoyed her slightly, but also intrigued her. She had met humans before, and always with predictable results. This human seemed different. Ethan moved through the crowd again, now more aware of whispers and glances. Some aliens noted his confidence and wondered what he might do if directly challenged. He smiled faintly at the thought, knowing that perception could be as important as skill. In arenas like this, underestimating a human could be a critical mistake as the day wore on. Ethan witnessed several matches, each highlighting the differences between species. Speed, strength, reflexes, all impressive, but he also noted the lack of patience and restraint among the alien fighters. They moved fast, attacked fast, and relied on the assumption that victory would come naturally. Ethan understood that if he ever had to fight, he could leverage their overconfidence. It was a dangerous but valuable insight. Finally, the crowd began to disperse for the evening. Lights dimmed slightly, and the noise of the arena faded to a background hum. Ethan found a quiet corner to review his observations mentally. The day had been long, but informative. He had learned about alien culture, combat strategies, and most importantly, the power of calmness under pressure. He understood that humans were underestimated here, but also that those underestimations could be challenged with intelligence and courage. Lyravos watched from across the hall as Ethan paused, seemingly lost in thought. For the first time in her experience with humans, she felt a flicker of uncertainty. She could not pinpoint why, but the human's demeanor suggested he was capable of more than appearances showed. It was unsettling and yet oddly compelling. Ethan did not seek attention. He had no need for applause or recognition. He simply walked back to his quarters on the station, thinking about the day's events and what might come next. The arena was a place of spectacle, but also a place where assumptions could be shattered. And in that quiet, thoughtful human walk, even without raising a hand in combat, Ethan Cole had begun to do just that. The next morning, Ethan woke to the low hum of the arena station. The air carried the faint metallic scent of machinery mixed with the perfumes of hundreds of alien species. The previous day had been a test of observation and patience, and now it was time for something more. He had not expected to be involved directly, but as he walked toward the main hall, he noticed a commotion near one of the smaller platforms. A human delegate had been mocked during a practice match. Laughter echoed through the corridors as the alien audience ridiculed his every move. Ethan's instincts told him this would escalate if someone did not step forward. Without hesitation, he approached the gathering crowd. The murmurs quieted slightly as he moved, his presence commanding attention despite his calm demeanor. Ethan's decision to step forward was not impulsive. It was deliberate, rooted in a sense of fairness and personal pride. Lyra Voss stood near the center. Her posture relaxed, yet her eyes tracked Ethan. She expected humans to cower, to apologize, or to excuse themselves. Seeing Ethan move with confidence, a deliberate calm, was unexpected. Lyra felt a mixture of irritation and curiosity. "He actually intends to do something," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. It was rare for a human to act with such composure in a situation. Designed to highlight their weaknesses, Ethan stopped a few feet from the mocked delegate. He addressed the alien crowd in a clear voice, not loud but commanding enough to be heard. "I will take this challenge under the standard rules," he said. The announcement caused a ripple through the audience. Some laughed at the idea of a single human stepping up. Others leaned forward, intrigued by his courage. The aliens had not expected humans to respond in such a straightforward manner. And Lyra's attention sharpened. "You want to fight?" Lyra said, stepping forward. Her voice was steady, but carried a hint of amusement. "Do you understand what you are doing? You will not last a minute under my rules." The crowd laughed again, anticipating a short, entertaining duel. Ethan did not flinch. He simply nodded. He understood the rules well. Technology and external devices would not be allowed. Victory would rely on skill, strategy, and endurance. This was not a problem for someone who had trained his body and mind for discipline, rather than raw force. The rules were explained by the arena officials. No weapons beyond the provided ones. No external assistance, and a strict honor code to prevent unfair attacks. The fighters would face each other in a circular arena platform, leaving no space for hiding or retreat. The clarity of the rules allowed Ethan to plan mentally. He analyzed possible strategies, anticipating Lyra's moves based on her stance, speed, and muscle tension. This was a human advantage: observation, patience, and adaptability. Lyra sized him up as well, her confidence slightly shaken by his calm demeanor. Aliens often relied on overwhelming strength and speed to win fights, assuming that smaller, weaker species would fall quickly. Ethan did not move or act aggressively. He remained measured, his breathing steady, his gaze focused. This simple human calm unnerved her more than brute force could. The crowd's energy shifted from laughter to a mix of curiosity and doubt. Some aliens whispered among themselves, "Can he really do it? He doesn't seem afraid." These murmurs spread, adding attention to the air. The stage was set not just for a duel, but for the unexpected. Lyra, used to unquestioned victories, felt a flicker of uncertainty. She had underestimated humans before. She did not like being surprised. When the match officially began, the audience hushed. Lyra made the first move, her body a blur as she tested Ethan's reactions. Her strikes were precise and powerful, but Ethan had prepared mentally for speed and timing. He dodged and blocked using careful movements rather than raw strength. Each step and counter showed that humans could endure more than expected, especially when disciplined. The audience watched closely, noticing that this human was not just reacting, but anticipating. The initial exchanges were dominated by Lyra, as expected. Her movements were fluid, almost graceful, but Ethan's patience allowed him to learn from each strike. He noticed patterns in her attacks, slight ticks and signals that indicated where she would strike next. By not rushing or panicking, Ethan turned observation into a defensive advantage. The fight was no longer just a test of speed and strength. It had become a battle of wits and patience. Some of the alien spectators began to murmur in disbelief. A human surviving this long reading and adapting in real time was not something they had anticipated. Lyra herself began to sense a shift. Her early amusement was fading into something more serious. She could no longer rely solely on her strength. She had to account for this human's intelligence. That realization made her adjust her strategy. Introducing feints and varying her speed to break Ethan's rhythm, Ethan adapted seamlessly. He did not attack recklessly, instead using each opening to create small advantages. His counters were measured, precise, and never excessive. The audience began to notice that the human's endurance was unusual. It was not brute force, but mental discipline and controlled reactions that allowed him to remain competitive. Each block, dodge, and slight counter displayed not just skill, but human adaptability and focus. The duel continued for several minutes, with neither fighter conceding ground easily. Lyra was struck by Ethan's ability to maintain calm even under constant pressure. His determination was visible, yet he did not overextend or panic. The pattern she had relied on against weaker opponents was failing. She felt the rare frustration of facing someone who forced her to adapt constantly. This was a different kind of challenge, one that required attention and respect. At one point, Lyra attempted a complex maneuver to catch Ethan off guard, but he anticipated her movement and countered just enough to neutralize it. The crowd was silent for a brief moment, absorbing the unexpected display. Ethan's counter was not a victory, but it was a statement. Humans could learn, adapt, and endure. Lyra's expression flickered between shock and acknowledgement. She had underestimated humans, and the reality was becoming unavoidable. The intensity of the fight did not wane. Ethan's focus allowed him to stay just slightly ahead of what Lyra expected, always observing, always calculating. He found small opportunities to test her defenses, to probe for openings without overcommitting. The balance of the fight shifted gradually, subtle enough that the casual observer might not notice, but significant to anyone paying attention. Each precise action displayed a human approach to combat, patience, calculation, and endurance. Lyra's confidence began to waver. She had dominated every previous opponent through speed and strength alone. Ethan's style was unfamiliar, frustrating in its simplicity and effectiveness. Every time she tried a direct attack, he adapted. When she attempted a more complex move, he countered just enough to show he understood without striking recklessly. The human's composure was unsettling. Lyra had never faced someone who treated the duel as a mental challenge as much as a physical one. The crowd, sensing the shift, grew more vocal. Aliens who had assumed the human would fall quickly now watched with curiosity, even admiration. Murmurs of disbelief spread. He's still standing. He reads her moves. The human is learning. Lyra noticed the change in the audience as well. Understanding that perception mattered as much as the duel itself, her reputation as an unbeatable warrior now rested on how she would respond to this unexpected human opponent. Ethan's strategy was clear. He did not seek to dominate through brute strength, but to survive, to learn, to demonstrate that humans were more capable than the audience assumed. Each movement, each block, each minor counter was a lesson in human discipline. Lyra, for the first time, realized that victory would not come easily and that she might need to respect this human. She hoped to win without losing face. As the duel neared its midpoint, both fighters were showing signs of exertion, but Ethan's calmness remained intact. He did not rush, did not overextend, and did not give in to the instinct to panic. Lyra adjusted her attacks, attempting unpredictability, but Ethan had anticipated enough to continue holding his ground. The atmosphere was electric, the audience sensing that something remarkable was unfolding. Finally, Lyra paused briefly, reassessing the human before her. There was no anger, only respect beginning to grow. The fight was no longer a simple display of superiority, but a test of skill, patience, and intelligence. Ethan had turned a situation meant to highlight human weakness into an opportunity to reveal human strength. The arena, once filled with laughter and mockery, now held a different energy: curiosity, tension, and respect. Ethan understood the challenge was not just physical. It was about changing perceptions, showing that humans could endure, adapt, and act with strategy and discipline. As he stood ready for the next move, he knew the duel had already succeeded in shifting the expectations of those watching. The human spirit, calm and deliberate, had begun to leave its mark on an audience that had assumed weakness. The duel was no longer just about winning. It was about proving that assumptions, no matter how widespread, could be shattered with patience, focus, and courage. The duel continued under the bright lights of the arena, and the crowd was fully engaged now. The initial amusement that humans could not fight was gone, replaced with a tense curiosity. Ethan Cole had survived the opening moves, encountered with skill that the aliens had not expected. Lyra Voss adjusted her strategy, taking the fight more seriously. But she still underestimated the humans' adaptability and endurance. Ethan's movements were deliberate. He dodged and blocked without panic, analyzing each strike and feint. Lyra's strikes were powerful and precise, but each time she attacked, Ethan noticed a pattern in the way she shifted her weight, the slight angle of her shoulders, and the rhythm of her steps. He relied on these observations to counter effectively, not aggressively, but with precision that disrupted her flow. The crowd murmured in disbelief as the human continued to survive blows that would have incapacitated an average opponent. Some of the aliens whispered, questioning their assumptions. "He's not just surviving," one said. "He's learning. He's adapting." Lyra noticed the shift in their attention, realizing that the duel was no longer entertainment but a serious test of skill. She felt the pressure mounting and understood that she could not rely solely on speed and strength. Ethan began to experiment, testing Lyra's defenses with small, calculated movements. He did not attack recklessly. Instead, he created opportunities to observe her reactions. Every time she tried to overwhelm him, he adjusted, moving slightly off the line of attack. Using timing and balance to maintain his position, the human endurance that had seemed ordinary at first now became a weapon in itself. Lyra had never faced an opponent who refused to panic, who treated defense and observation as equal to offense. The duel intensified as Lyra increased the complexity of her attacks. She incorporated feints and quick changes in direction, trying to catch Ethan off guard. Yet he read the subtle cues in her movements, predicting attacks just in time to respond. The audience was captivated. Whispers of surprise and admiration spread through the stands. Humans were often underestimated in combat. Here was a living example that challenged every stereotype. Ethan's strategy was simple but effective. He conserved energy, avoided unnecessary risks, and focused on learning from every strike. His calm demeanor unnerved Lyra, who had expected a panicked, reactive opponent. With each passing moment, she realized that brute strength alone would not guarantee victory. The human before her was patient, disciplined, and aware, qualities that had been dismissed in previous encounters with her species. The first significant turning point came when Ethan managed to counter a complex maneuver that Lyra had executed to break his defense. Instead of striking with force, he used the momentum to shift her balance and create a brief opening. The audience gasped. Lyra paused, shocked that a human could read her move and respond with such precision. This single moment changed the perception of the duel. It was no longer a display of alien dominance. It had become a demonstration of human skill and intelligence. Lyra adjusted quickly, now fighting with heightened focus. She was no longer dismissive. She recognized that the duel required more than power. Ethan continued to adapt, responding to her shifts in attack strategy. The pattern of the fight was no longer predictable. Each move was countered with calculated defense. Each attack met with observation. The tension in the arena arose, the audience aware that the outcome was uncertain. Even the veteran alien spectators leaned forward, intrigued by this rare display of human combat proficiency. Despite the intensity, Ethan maintained his composure. His breathing was steady, his movements controlled, and his mind clear. He did not allow fear or adrenaline to dictate his actions. This was a human trait often overlooked by alien observers, who assumed humans relied solely on quick reflexes or brute strength. Here, Ethan demonstrated that patience, awareness, and adaptability could match, and even surpass raw power. The duel reached a point where both fighters were visibly exerted. Yet neither was willing to concede. Lyra's attacks became sharper, faster, and more complex, but Ethan's responses were precise and measured. The audience could see the human's endurance and strategy at work. They were witnessing a rare duel where intelligence and calm equaled, or even outweighed, strength and speed. Lyra realized that she had underestimated the human completely. A part of her felt the unusual stirrings of respect. Ethan noticed a momentary lapse in Lyra's defense during a rapid sequence of strikes. Instead of striking aggressively, he chose a subtle maneuver to test her reaction. This choice was deliberate. It demonstrated that he was not seeking mere victory, but understanding, control, and honor. Lyra recovered quickly, but the brief disarmament had shifted the momentum of the duel in subtle ways. The audience responded with a mixture of gasps and quiet applause, realizing that the human was not just surviving, but influencing the flow of the fight. As the duel progressed, Ethan's quiet confidence continued to affect Lyra. She fought with more care and attention. But every time she attempted to anticipate his moves, he adapted again. It became clear that this was no ordinary fight. It was a meeting of two disciplined minds, each learning from the other. The initial arrogance she had held was replaced with a mixture of frustration and respect. For the first time in her experience, she faced a human who forced her to fight differently. The energy of the crowd shifted as well. Aliens who had come to mock humans now watched with curiosity and admiration. Conversations among spectators moved from laughter to speculation. "He's clever," one whispered. "He's thinking ahead." The mood in the arena had changed. What began as entertainment had transformed into a lesson about assumptions and underestimated opponents. Ethan's approach had not relied on overwhelming force, but on patience, observation, and adaptability. This was a skill the audience had not expected to witness from a human. As the duel neared its climax, Lyra attempted a final sequence of rapid strikes designed to overwhelm Ethan completely. He moved with remarkable timing, deflecting and dodging, maintaining his balance, and exploiting subtle openings to create slight counters. The audience was captivated, sensing that the final outcome was uncertain. The duel had become a display not just of skill, but of resilience, discipline, and intellect. In the final moments, Ethan managed to execute a maneuver that briefly disarmed Lyra, demonstrating that humans could counter even the most powerful and rapid attacks. The crowd fell silent. Lyra's expression revealed genuine shock. She had never encountered a human with such patience, adaptability, and skill. For the first time, she questioned her assumptions about the species she had always considered weak. Ethan's quiet endurance and thoughtful responses had forced her to respect him as a warrior. The duel concluded with both fighters breathing heavily, yet standing firm. Lyra, now fully attentive and serious, acknowledged the human before her. The audience erupted, not with the laughter they had anticipated, but with amazement and respect. Ethan had not relied on aggression or brute strength. He had relied on discipline, observation, and endurance. The fight had become a turning point, demonstrating that humans could survive, adapt, and even challenge the strongest opponents through intelligence and calmness. Ethan's approach had proven that assumptions, no matter how deeply held, could be broken. Lyra had learned that strength alone did not define a warrior. The human before her had demonstrated that patience, awareness, and honor could counter even overwhelming force. The audience, once dismissive, now witnessed firsthand that humans could rise to challenges, endure, and influence outcomes beyond what was expected as they stepped back from the center of the arena. Both fighters breathed heavily, their focus lingering on one another. Ethan did not gloat. He simply stood with quiet confidence. Lyra, for the first time, regarded a human with respect rather than dismissal. She had underestimated him at the start, and the duel had forced her to reassess every assumption she had held about humans. The tension and spectacle of the arena were replaced by mutual acknowledgement and understanding. The fight had changed perceptions, not only among the participants, but across the entire audience. Ethan's calm, disciplined approach had left a lasting impression. He had not only survived a duel designed to highlight human weakness, but it also taught a lesson about adaptability, observation, and endurance. The duel had become a demonstration of human potential, leaving the crowd amazed and Lyra forced to respect the human who had challenged her expectations. The lessons of the fight extended beyond the arena floor, altering perceptions and creating an understanding that would resonate long after the match was over. The duel had reached a point where neither fighter had given an inch, yet the energy in the arena shifted from tension to admiration. Lyra Voss, who had once assumed humans could be dismissed easily, now found herself facing a warrior who combined skill, patience, and honor in a way that she had rarely encountered. She no longer attacked with mere arrogance or overconfidence. Every strike and movement was deliberate, careful, and aimed at testing as much as defeating her opponent. Ethan Cole maintained his calm demeanor, breathing steadily and observing every shift in Lyra's movements. He had not yet acted aggressively. His goal was to understand, adapt, and survive, all while demonstrating that humans were capable of more than alien spectators assumed. Each movement was calculated, precise, and measured, reflecting not only skill but intelligence and self-control. His quiet confidence now commanded a different kind of attention in the arena. The audience, initially entertained by the idea of an easy human defeat, was now fully captivated. Conversations turned from amusement to analysis. "He's learning faster than she expects," whispered one alien spectator. "He is patient and aware," another said. Lyra sensed the shift in the audience as well. The laughter and mockery had disappeared, replaced by curiosity and quiet respect. This was no longer a demonstration of superiority. It was a test of skill, strategy, and character. Lyra increased the intensity of her attacks, testing Ethan with combinations designed to break his defense. Each time, he responded with careful movement and measured counteractions. He did not strike recklessly. He avoided unnecessary aggression, choosing instead to focus on timing, balance, and precision. Lyra's eyes widened as she realized that this human could not be bullied into mistakes. His calm approach created openings and yet minimized risk, a rare quality that she had not anticipated. As the duel progressed, a moment came when Lyra stumbled slightly, losing her footing in the middle of a rapid sequence of attacks. Ethan had the opportunity to strike decisively and end the duel. For many fighters, that would have been the obvious choice. Exploit the weakness, take the victory. But Ethan hesitated. Instead of attacking, he held his position, allowing Lyra to regain balance. The crowd reacted with a mix of shock and awe. In the arena, honor and control were often secondary to victory, yet Ethan demonstrated a different approach, one that valued restraint and respect over brute success. Lyra recovered quickly, but her expression revealed confusion and intrigue. She had expected a human to act impulsively, to either falter or seize the moment recklessly. Ethan's choice challenged her assumptions about what humans valued and how they fought. This moment shifted her perspective. She could no longer view him as merely weak or predictable. Instead, she began to see a warrior with discipline, awareness, and honor, qualities that even the strongest alien fighters might lack. The audience, too, recognized the significance. Gasps and whispers filled the arena. Aliens who had come expecting. Spectacle now observed a rare demonstration of character as much as combat skill. Ethan's restraint and calculated decision to prioritize honor over immediate advantage highlighted a human trait that could not be measured in strength alone. Lyra felt the weight of the lesson, understanding that the duel was no longer about proving dominance. It was about learning, adapting, and respecting an unexpected opponent. As Lyra resumed her attack, she fought with renewed seriousness rather than arrogance. She was fully engaged, each strike calculated to test the limits of her opponent's abilities. Ethan, in turn, responded with precision, using the knowledge he had gained from studying her movements and patterns. The duel had evolved into a complex exchange of strategy and skill. Every motion conveyed intent, awareness, and mutual recognition of ability. The audience watched in rapt attention, captivated by the intelligence behind the physical movements. Ethan noticed a small opening in Lyra's defense, a subtle shift in her stance during a complex maneuver. This time, he used it to demonstrate human capability without resorting to unnecessary aggression. He executed a controlled counter that disarmed her briefly enough to show skill and strategy, but not to harm. The audience reacted audibly, many standing in surprise. Lyra's shock was evident. She had never encountered a human who combined defense, observation, and restraint so effectively. Respect for Ethan grew, replacing any remaining doubt she held. The duel continued with both fighters showing signs of fatigue, yet neither wavered. Lyra's speed and strength remained impressive, but Ethan's endurance, composure, and calculated responses allowed him to stay competitive. The fight had become less about raw power and more about mental discipline, observation, and strategic timing. Every movement carried meaning, every response demonstrated thoughtfulness. The human had transformed the duel into a showcase of patience and adaptability. The alien spectators began to reevaluate their assumptions. Humans had been dismissed as weak and reliant on tools, yet here was proof to the contrary. Ethan had not relied on aggression or gadgets, only on focus, adaptability, and patience. Lyra's previous expectations were challenged. Her cultural assumption that humans were inferior in combat was shattered by the display before her eyes. Even the veterans in the audience nodded in recognition of the human's skill and composure as the duel neared its conclusion. Both fighters were aware that the outcome would be decided not by brute strength, but by who could maintain discipline under pressure. Lyra, now fully respectful, adjusted her strategy once more, fighting with intention rather than arrogance. Ethan continued to counter, relying on observation, timing, and endurance. The audience remained silent, absorbing the lesson that humans could fight with intelligence and honor, not just strength. In the final moments, Ethan executed a move that highlighted his discipline and strategic thinking. Instead of overwhelming Lyra, he forced her to adjust, demonstrating control without unnecessary aggression. Lyra recognized the subtle mastery in his actions and understood that the duel had transcended a simple contest of strength. It had become a lesson in character, skill, and the unexpected capabilities of a human warrior. The duel ended with Ethan narrowly victorious, not through raw power but through discipline, observation, and honor. Lyra extended her hand in acknowledgement, a gesture of respect rarely offered to humans by her species. The audience erupted in amazement. Realizing that they had witnessed more than a duel, they had seen a demonstration of human potential, a breaking of assumptions, and the emergence of a warrior whose skill and character demanded recognition. Ethan remained composed, accepting the acknowledgement without arrogance. He understood that his goal had never been merely to win, but to demonstrate that humans were capable, disciplined, and worthy of respect. Lyra, once confident in her superiority, now understood that assumptions about strength and ability could be misleading. The duel had not only changed perceptions in the arena, but it also left a lasting impression on both participants. The human who had faced the alien warrior with calm intelligence had achieved something greater than victory. He had earned respect, challenged prejudice, and proved that discipline and honor could triumph even in the face of overwhelming expectation. The arena was quiet now, the energy shifting from the excitement of the duel to reflection. Ethan Cole stood at the center, breathing evenly, his body tired but steady. Around him, the alien audience was filled with a mix of awe, respect, and a touch of disbelief. They had witnessed a human not only survive but challenge and outmaneuver one of their most skilled warriors. It was a moment that would be remembered and discussed for a long time across the Allied systems. Lyra Voss approached Ethan, her usual confident demeanor softened by respect. Her eyes reflected a combination of admiration and thoughtful consideration. "I misjudged you," she admitted quietly, her voice carrying weight. You are not like the others I have faced. Your calmness, your patience, your skill. It is remarkable." Ethan nodded, acknowledging her words with quiet gratitude. He had not sought praise. His goal had been to demonstrate that humans could endure, adapt, and act with honor, and in that moment, felt that mission accomplished. The human delegates around him moved forward cautiously, still surprised by the outcome. Their earlier doubts about human capability were replaced with a newfound sense of pride and reassurance. Ethan's victory achieved not through overwhelming force, but through discipline and intelligence, offered a model for human potential in interspecies relations. The lessons extended beyond the arena floor. They reached every observer who had assumed that humans were weak or easily outmatched. The alien audience began to disperse slowly, many still talking in low tones about the humans' performance. Veterans and younger warriors alike discussed the duel, analyzing the techniques and strategies displayed. Some were skeptical at first, questioning whether luck had played a role. But the consistency of Ethan's movements, his patience, and the deliberate choices he had made proved otherwise. The lesson was clear. Humans could not be underestimated. Lyra remained standing near the center, reflecting on the events. She had fought many skilled opponents in her life, but few had required the level of focus and adaptability that Ethan demanded. She realized that her assumptions about strength and superiority had been too rigid, and she felt a subtle but important shift in her perspective. The duel had not only tested physical skill, but had revealed character, intelligence, and the ability to act with honor under pressure. Ethan took a moment to scan the arena, noting the reactions of various spectators. Some younger aliens had wide eyes, clearly inspired by the humans' performance. Older warriors nodded, impressed by the strategic thinking and discipline on display. Even those who had been initially dismissive now regarded him with a mixture of respect and cautious admiration. The duel had created a ripple effect, altering perceptions and encouraging reflection across species. After the initial shock wore off, officials approached Ethan and Lyra to formally acknowledge the duel's outcome. Ethan was offered honors, recognition, and status among the interspecies community, but he declined any special treatment beyond what was fair for his people. His goal had never been personal gain, but to demonstrate that humans deserved respect and recognition. By standing for fairness and capability, he had elevated the status of humanity in the eyes of others. Lyra spoke again, addressing the gathered spectators. Her tone was firm and commanding, carrying the authority of a seasoned warrior. This human has shown that strength is not always measured by size or speed. Intelligence, patience, and honor can define a true fighter. Today, you have all witnessed the power of discipline and the value of careful observation. Humans once underestimated are capable of much more than we assumed. The crowd listened intently, many nodding in agreement. The statement was not just a personal acknowledgement. It was a public reevaluation of human potential. In the hours that followed, discussions extended beyond the arena. Humans and aliens alike debated the implications of the duel. Training methods, strategies, and approaches to combat were analyzed and compared. For humans, the duel became a source of pride, a reminder that careful preparation, focus, and courage could overcome assumptions of weakness. For aliens, it served as a lesson that dismissing other species could lead to unexpected consequences and lost opportunities for mutual respect and understanding. Ethan and Lyra spent a few moments alone. Walking through the quieter parts of the station, the air was still, and the hum of machinery was a calming backdrop. Lyra's demeanor was less guarded, more reflective. "You have changed how I see your species," she said quietly. "Not just for today, but for the future. Humans may be underestimated, but now I know better." Ethan nodded. He did not need to say more. The acknowledgement itself was meaningful. Their shared respect, forged in the heat of the duel, created a bridge between two species that had long been divided by assumptions. As they spoke, Ethan considered the broader implications. The duel had been a small event in the grand scheme of interstellar relations, but its impact was already evident. Aliens who had assumed superiority were now reconsidering their beliefs. Humans who had doubted themselves were seeing the potential that disciplined training and thoughtful action could unlock. The duel was a microcosm of a larger truth. Assumptions, no matter how entrenched, could be challenged and overcome. The day ended with a sense of quiet accomplishment. Ethan returned to his quarters, reflecting on the duel and its outcomes. He felt satisfaction not from victory itself, but from the way the event had shifted perceptions and inspired reflection. He had not sought fame or recognition. He had sought to demonstrate that humans could act with intelligence, endurance, and honor. In that goal, he had succeeded. In the following days, the story of the duel spread across allied systems. Humans were now regarded with increased respect, and their capabilities were taken more seriously in arenas, negotiations, and military contexts. Lyra Voss herself began to advocate for more careful consideration of human potential in future encounters, influenced by the lessons she had learned from the duel. What had begun as a simple contest of skill had grown into a catalyst for understanding, collaboration, and a re-evaluation of assumptions. Ethan continued his work as an observer, but he did so with the quiet knowledge that his actions had a lasting impact. He had proven that humans were capable of endurance, adaptation, and strategic thinking even in environments designed to favor strength and speed. The duel had not only been a test of skill, but a demonstration of human character, resilience, and the ability to challenge long-held assumptions. In every way that mattered, the human spirit had been validated. Lyra and Ethan occasionally met afterward to discuss training methods, strategies, and interspecies cooperation. Their relationship was built on mutual respect, forged in combat, and tempered by observation and understanding. The duel had created more than a winner and a loser. It had established a precedent for respect, collaboration, and learning between species. Aliens who once dismissed humans now viewed them as capable allies. Inhumans, inspired by Ethan's example, continued to develop skills that would allow them to thrive in diverse and challenging environments. The duel that had shocked Lyra Voss and the alien spectators became more than an event in the arena. It became a story of human perseverance, intelligence, and honor. Ethan Cole had demonstrated that courage, patience, and observation could turn assumptions on their head, and that discipline and integrity could achieve more than strength alone. The legacy of the duel lived on, not only in the memories of those who witnessed it, but in the changed perceptions, its inspired actions, and new respect for what humans could achieve. It was a reminder that assumptions, no matter how deeply held, could be challenged by those willing to stand with patience, intelligence, and unwavering focus. Even though the duel had ended, Ethan Cole found that the effects of the fight continued to ripple through the arena station and beyond. He walked through the quieter sections of the complex, observing groups of aliens still discussing the unexpected outcome. Some of them compared the duel to historic matches, noting how unusual it was for a human to display such patience and strategic thinking. Ethan remained composed, aware that the real challenge now was not in the fight itself, but in how these new perceptions would shape future interactions. Lyra Voss approached him once more, her demeanor a mixture of curiosity and professional respect. She had spent time reflecting on the duel, analyzing every move, and realizing that underestimating humans could have consequences she had never fully considered. "You have taught more than just skill today," she said. "You have shown that humans can think, adapt, and endure in ways many of us did not expect." Ethan acknowledged her statement quietly. He did not seek praise, but it was clear that the duel had sparked something important, a reconsideration of human capability, cross species. In the following days, the arena station became a hub of discussion and debate. Aliens of various species analyzed the duel, trying to understand Ethan's strategy and the human approach to combat. Some younger warriors were inspired, eager to incorporate elements of patience, observation, and calculated restraint into their own training. For humans, the event became a symbol of potential and perseverance, showing that intelligence and endurance could match and even surpass sheer physical power. Ethan took time to meet with some of the human delegates who had been present. They expressed admiration for his calm, methodical approach, Many admitted that they had doubted their own abilities and had assumed that humans would always be at a disadvantage in interspecies contests. Seeing Ethan perform had given them confidence and pride. He encouraged them to continue training, to focus on discipline and observation, and to understand that courage combined with intelligence could make a profound difference. Meanwhile, Lyra began to rethink her role as a warrior and leader. She had long valued strength and speed above all else, and her culture often emphasized dominance and intimidation. Ethan's performance had shown her that these traits, while important, were not the only indicators of a capable fighter. She began to question how her assumptions might affect future interactions with humans and other species. There was a subtle shift in her outlook, a growing respect for diversity and skill, thought, and approach. Ethan and Lyra occasionally trained together in controlled practice sessions, focusing on techniques, strategy, and adaptability. Lyra's initial skepticism gradually turned into genuine interest and curiosity. She wanted to learn more about the human approach to combat, and Ethan was more than willing to share insights, emphasizing observation, timing, and mental preparation. Their sessions became a learning exchange, bridging cultural differences through skill, understanding, and mutual respect. The arena officials noticed the impact of the duel on interspecies relations. There was an increase in collaborative training programs as humans and aliens alike sought to learn from one another. Ethan's example had demonstrated that mutual respect, patience, and focus could create opportunities for cooperation that were previously overlooked. The duel, initially a contest of skill, had evolved into a catalyst for understanding and collaboration. Word of the duel and its human communities gained recognition for their abilities, and discussions across systems emphasized the importance of observing, analyzing, and respecting different approaches to challenges. Aliens who had previously dismissed humans began to consider them as valuable allies, capable of contributing to shared goals in ways that were previously unimagined. Ethan's calm and disciplined approach had created ripples of change, challenging long-held assumptions and encouraging reflection.